My name is Margaret Sullivan, and at 78 years old, I never imagined my own children would push me to reveal the secret I'd kept for decades. As I lay in that hospital bed, watching them rifle through my belongings and hide my heart medication while laughing about their inheritance plans, they had no idea what was coming. The moment I pushed myself upright and pulled out the sealed envelope I'd hidden beneath my pillow, their gleeful expressions froze like winter frost on glass. What they discovered in those pages would shatter every assumption they'd made about their feeble old mother and the fortune they thought they knew. Before I share how their greed became their downfall, let me take you back to where this twisted family tale truly began. Let me know where you're watching from in the comments below, and hit that like button if you've ever been underestimated because of your age. Trust me, this story will show you that wisdom and patience can be the most powerful weapons against those who mistake kindness for weakness. The morning it all unraveled started like any other in Riverside General Hospital. I'd been admitted 3 days earlier for what my doctor called a minor cardiac episode. Medical speak for the fact that my heart had decided to remind me of its 78 years of faithful service. My children, Patricia and Ronald, had been notified immediately, though their concern seemed more focused on my financial affairs than my actual health. "Mother's pills," I heard Patricia whisper to Ronald as they huddled near the doorway, thinking I was asleep. "If we just delay them a bit, she'll be more compliant about signing the papers." Ronald's chuckle was low and cruel. "Brilliant. The old bird's been stubbornly healthy for too long anyway. About time we secured what's rightfully ours." Their words cut deeper than any surgeon's scalpel ever could. These were the children I'd raised, sacrificed for, and loved unconditionally. Now they spoke of me like I was nothing more than an obstacle to their inheritance. Little did they know that their dear old bird had been playing a much longer game than they could ever imagine. I kept my breathing steady, maintaining the illusion of sleep as I heard Patricia's heels click across the linoleum floor toward my bedside table. Through barely opened eyes, I watched her slip my heart medication into her designer purse with practiced ease. The irony wasn't lost on me. The very pills meant to keep my heart beating were being stolen by the ones who were supposed to love me most. But I had survived 78 years on this earth by being far more observant and strategic than anyone gave me credit for. And now, my own children were about to learn that underestimating Margaret Sullivan would be the costliest mistake of their lives. The Sullivan family estate in Willow Creek, Vermont, had been the picture of New England prosperity for 3 generations. Our pristine white colonial home, with its black shutters and wraparound porch, sat on 40 acres of prime real estate that had been in my late husband Arthur's family since 1923. To outsiders, we appeared to be the epitome of generational wealth and family harmony. The carefully manicured gardens, the annual charity galas I hosted, and the family portraits lining our mahogany staircase all painted a picture of refined success. But behind those pristine walls, a different story had been unfolding for the past 15 years, ever since Arthur's death from a sudden stroke. That's when I first noticed the change in Patricia and Ronald. The grief I expected never materialized. Instead, their first questions were about the will, the estate value, and when they could expect their inheritance. I had been too deep in my own mourning to fully process their callousness at the time. Patricia, my eldest at 52, had married David, a middle school principal who, despite his good heart, never earned quite enough to satisfy her champagne tastes. She compensated by maintaining appearances through maxed-out credit cards and constantly borrowing against her future inheritance, as she liked to call it. Her 2 children, my grandchildren Emma and Josh, had been raised with the same material expectations. Though Emma, now 25, had recently begun questioning her mother's values. Ronald, 3 years younger, had taken a different path, but arrived at the same destination of greed. A real estate developer with grand ambitions but poor execution, he'd spent the last decade launching one failed project after another. Each bankruptcy was followed by a visit to dear old mother, hat in hand, spinning tales of how this next venture would surely make us all rich. I'd stopped counting the money I'd given him after it passed $400,000. What neither of them knew was that I hadn't been the naive widow they assumed me to be. My background before marrying Arthur remained a carefully guarded secret. They knew me only as the supportive wife who'd raised them while their father built his construction empire. They never questioned why I insisted on maintaining separate accounts, or why I spent my Tuesday afternoons at the library for the past 40 years. Their assumption that I was just another sheltered housewife would prove to be their undoing. The house itself held secrets in every corner. The library they rarely entered contained financial records dating back decades. The attic they dismissed as full of old junk house documents that would rewrite their entire understanding of the family fortune. And the safe hidden behind my mother's portrait. Well, that contained the most explosive secret of all. One I'd been preparing to reveal when the time was right. Their medication theft had simply accelerated my timeline. The pattern of their disrespect had begun subtly, like cracks in fine china that spread slowly before the whole piece shatters. It started with forgotten birthdays and rushed holiday visits that felt more like obligations than celebrations. "Sorry, Mother, you know how busy we are," became Patricia's standard refrain, usually delivered over the phone because she couldn't be bothered to visit in person. I remember the Christmas of 2018 with particular clarity. I had spent weeks preparing the traditional Sullivan family feast. Arthur's mother's cornbread stuffing, my grandmother's apple pie, and the crown roast that had graced our table for 50 years. The dining room gleamed with polished silver and crystal, each place setting arranged with the same care I'd shown when Arthur was alive. Patricia arrived 2 hours late, spent the entire meal on her phone negotiating some shopping return, and left before dessert. Ronald didn't show up at all, sending a text about an urgent business matter that I later learned was a poker game. The financial exploitation followed a predictable pattern too. Patricia would call with trembling voice about some crisis. Josh needed a new car for college. David's salary wasn't covering their mortgage. The stories were always urgent, always accompanied by promises to repay me once things turned around. I kept every receipt, every bank transfer record, watching the numbers climb while their gratitude diminished. Ronald's approach was more elaborate but equally transparent. He would invite me to lunch at upscale restaurants, presenting glossy brochures for his latest development project. "You're not just giving me money, Mother," he would say with practiced sincerity. "You're investing in your family's future. This project will triple your investment." Not one of his ventures ever returned a penny, yet he had the audacity to blame market conditions, corrupt partners, or simple bad luck, never his own incompetence. But it was the small cruelties that cut deepest. The eye rolls when I spoke at family gatherings, the impatient sighs when I moved too slowly for their liking, the way they would talk about me in the third person while I was sitting right there, as if age had made me invisible as well as irrelevant. "Mother's getting confused again," Patricia would say to Ronald when I questioned their version of events. "We should probably start thinking about her long-term care options." They never noticed that my supposed confusion only occurred when they were lying to me. They never realized that I maintained perfect recall of every broken promise, every dismissive comment, every time they treated me as an ATM rather than their mother. My neighbour, Dr. Sarah Chen, who'd become a dear friend after Arthur's passing, would often find me in tears after their visits. "Why do you tolerate this, Margaret?" she would ask. I would simply smile and say, "Every dog has its day, Sarah. I'm just waiting for mine." Dr. Sarah Chen was more than just a neighbour. She became my lifeline to sanity in those dark years after Arthur's death. A retired physician who'd moved to Willow Creek for the quiet life, she possessed the sharp intellect and warm heart that reminded me why human connection matters. We met, of all places, at the local library where I conducted my secret weekly business. And she was the first person in years to see me as more than just a wealthy widow or convenient bank account. "You have the most interesting reading material," Sarah had commented that first day, glancing at the stack of international business journals and financial law texts I was reviewing. Most people assumed I was reading romance novels or gardening magazines. Sarah recognized the sharp mind behind the grandmother facade, and our friendship bloomed from that moment of genuine recognition. Over evening tea sessions that became our sacred ritual, Sarah became my confidant and strategic advisor. Unlike my children, she never wanted anything from me except honest conversation and companionship. When I finally revealed the truth about my background, the MBA from Wharton I'd earned before meeting Arthur, the silent partner role I'd played in building his construction empire, the separate business ventures I'd quietly managed for decades, she wasn't surprised. "I knew you were more than you appeared," she said, refilling my cup with her special blend of jasmine tea. "The way you analyze situations, the questions you ask, these aren't the habits of someone who simply inherited wealth. You've created it." Sarah was the one who suggested I start documenting everything. "Not for revenge," she clarified, seeing my hesitation, "for protection, and perhaps eventually for justice." Together, we installed hidden security cameras throughout my home, capturing every visit from Patricia and Ronald. The footage revealed patterns I had been too close to see: the way they would inventory my possessions while I was in the bathroom, the photographs they took of valuable items, the whispered conversations about what they would sell first. More importantly, Sarah helped me see my situation with clarity rather than through the fog of maternal guilt. "They're not struggling adult children who need help," she pointed out during one particularly enlightening conversation. "They're calculating individuals who see you as an obstacle to wealth they feel entitled to. There's a difference between helping family and enabling exploitation." It was Sarah who connected me with her nephew, Marcus Webb, a brilliant estate attorney who specialized in complex family situations. "He'll help you protect yourself," she assured me, "and perhaps teach your children a lesson they desperately need to learn." Those Tuesday afternoon library visits became strategy sessions with Marcus, carefully crafting legal documents that would ensure my lifetime of hard work wouldn't be squandered by those who valued my money more than my life. Sarah's friendship reminded me that family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's the people who see your worth when others only see your wealth. My true education in financial independence had begun long before I met Arthur Sullivan. Growing up as Margaret O'Brien in working-class Boston, I'd watched my mother clean offices at night while my father worked double shifts at the factory. Their sacrifice to send me to college on partial scholarship instilled a fierce determination to never be financially vulnerable. That drive led me to Wharton Business School in 1965, one of only 12 women in my class. While my children believed their father was the sole architect of Sullivan Construction's success, the truth was far more complex. I had been the silent strategist, using my business acumen to guide Arthur's natural charisma and building skills into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Every major deal had my fingerprints on it, though I was careful to let Arthur take the public credit. It was the 1970s after all, and clients felt more comfortable believing they were dealing with a self-made man rather than a husband-wife team. But I hadn't stopped there. Using my maiden name and a post office box, I had built a parallel business empire that my family knew nothing about. Emla O'Brien Investments started small, purchasing undervalued properties in up-and-coming neighborhoods, investing in women-owned startups when nobody else would, building a portfolio that grew steadily over 4 decades. By the time Patricia and Ronald were calculating my worth based on Arthur's estate, my separate assets had quietly surpassed everything they thought they stood to inherit. The digital age had only expanded my capabilities. While my children chuckled at my struggles with my smartphone, I was actually managing complex international investments through encrypted channels. I let them think I couldn't figure out email while I was conducting virtual board meetings for the 3 companies where I served as a silent board member. Their condescension was my camouflage. Dr. Chen often marveled at my dual existence. "You're like a financial superhero with a secret identity," she joked one evening as I showed her my latest acquisition, a tech startup focused on senior care innovation. But it wasn't about ego or deception for its own sake. It was about maintaining control over my own destiny while observing who my children really were when they thought no one was watching. The seeds of strength I'd planted decades ago had grown into a forest of financial security and strategic options. Every dismissive comment from Patricia about my little hobbies, every patronizing pat on the head from Ronald as he explained why I didn't understand modern business, they all fed my resolve. I had built multiple fortunes while they struggled to maintain one lifestyle. I had created jobs and opportunities for hundreds while they couldn't manage their own finances. Most importantly, I had learned the art of patience. Good business is best served at the perfect moment. As I lay in that hospital bed, watching my children scheme over pills and inheritance papers, I knew my moment was finally approaching. The pivotal moment arrived on a grey Thursday morning in March 2023. I had been hospitalized for routine tests when my cardiologist, Dr. Freeman, discovered an irregularity that required immediate attention. "Nothing life-threatening if properly managed," he assured me, prescribing a specific heart medication that would regulate the condition. What should have been a simple health scare became the catalyst that exposed the true depths of my children's callousness. Patricia and Ronald arrived at the hospital within hours, their faces masks of concern that didn't quite reach their eyes. As Dr. Freeman explained my condition and the importance of the medication regimen, I watched them exchange meaningful glances. Their first questions weren't about my prognosis or comfort, but about my mental clarity and whether I had updated any important documents recently. That evening, while pretending to doze, I overheard the conversation that shattered any remaining illusions about my children's character. Patricia had pulled Ronald into the hallway, but their voices carried clearly through the thin hospital door. "This is our opportunity," Patricia hissed. "If she's disoriented enough without the medication, we can get her to sign the power of attorney papers I've had drawn up. David's lawyer friend says it's completely legal if she appears competent at the time of signing." Ronald's response was equally chilling. "How long can we delay the meds without causing permanent damage? We don't want her dead yet, just confused enough to be manageable." "The beauty is," Patricia continued, her voice taking on an excited edge, "without the pills, she'll have minor episodes that look like dementia. We can have her declared incompetent within months. The house alone is worth $4 million, and God knows what else she's hiding in those accounts Dad set up." I felt my heart skip. ironically proving the need for the very medication they planned to withhold. But it wasn't the physical betrayal that wounded me most. It was the casual cruelty of their calculation. They were discussing my life, my dignity, my autonomy, as if I were already gone, just an inconvenient barrier to their inheritance. The next morning, I watched through slitted eyes as Patricia slipped into my room early. She moved with practiced stealth to my bedside table, pocketing the pill bottle Dr. Freeman had left for my morning dose. When the nurse came in later, Patricia intercepted her with smooth lies. "Oh, Mother already took her medication. She's getting so forgetful. Sometimes she takes them twice. We'll manage them from now on to prevent overdosing." The nurse, young and trusting, nodded sympathetically. "That's so good she has family looking out for her," she said, making a note in my chart. Patricia's smile was poison wrapped in sugar. "We'd do anything for Mother." That moment, watching my own daughter literally steal the medication, keeping my heart stable while painting herself as devoted caregiver, was when Margaret Sullivan, the victim, died, and Margaret Sullivan, the warrior, was reborn. They wanted to play games with my life. They had no idea what game they had really started. The 12 hours following the theft of my medication were the longest of my life. As I lay in that hospital bed, feeling my heartbeat grow increasingly irregular without my pills, I faced a crossroads that would define not just my remaining years, but the legacy I would leave behind. I could play the victim, call for the nurse, expose their scheme immediately, or I could use this moment to implement a plan that had been forming in my mind for years. Dr. Chen arrived for her daily visit that afternoon, immediately noticing something was wrong. My pulse was erratic, and despite my best efforts to appear normal, she detected the subtle signs of medical distress. With Patricia and Ronald conveniently absent, probably celebrating their successful theft over lunch, I confided everything to my friend. "We're calling security right now," Sarah said, reaching for the call button. But I caught her hand with surprising strength. "No," I said firmly. "They've finally shown me who they truly are. Not disappointed children or struggling adults, but calculated predators who would risk my life for money. I need to handle this my way." Sarah's expression shifted from concern to understanding. "What do you need me to do?" "First, I need you to get me medication without them knowing. Second, contact Marcus immediately. Tell him to initiate Plan B." Plan B was something Marcus and I had discussed but never implemented. A complete restructuring of my estate that we could execute quickly if needed. "And third," I continued, feeling strength flow through me despite my irregular heartbeat, "I need you to help me stage a performance over the coming months." That evening, when Patricia and Ronald returned, they found me apparently weaker, slightly confused, but still coherent enough to discuss family matters. I let my hands tremble just enough, allowed my words to occasionally falter. Their eyes lit up with predatory satisfaction. "Mother," Patricia said in her fake sweet voice, "we've been thinking about your future care. Perhaps it's time to make some arrangements to protect your assets." I played my part perfectly, mixing moments of clarity with apparent confusion. "Assets? Oh, you mean your father's money? Yes, Arthur always said to take care of you children." Ronald practically salivated. "Exactly, Mother, and we have some papers here that would help us take care of everything for you." But I wasn't ready to spring my trap yet. I needed time, evidence, and most importantly, I needed everything legally airtight. Papers? I don't know, I should talk to someone, that nice lawyer. I let my voice trail off, watching them exchange frustrated glances. The beautiful irony was that my children's crime, withholding medication, gave me the perfect justification for what I was about to do. They had proven themselves not just unworthy heirs, but actual threats to my life, and that would make all the difference in what was to come. I was discharged from the hospital after a week, with strict orders to take my medication regularly. Patricia volunteered to manage my pills, maintaining her charade of the caring daughter. What she didn't know was that Sarah had arranged for a duplicate prescription, which she administered during her daily visits to check on me at home. This double life, appearing weak for my children while secretly maintaining my health and executing my plan, required every ounce of strength I possessed. Over the following months, Marcus worked tirelessly to restructure everything. "Your children's actions constitute elder abuse and attempted murder," he said bluntly during one of our clandestine meetings at Sarah's home. "We have grounds for complete disinheritance, but you want something more sophisticated, don't you?" Indeed, I did. Simply cutting them off would be too simple, too expected. Instead, we crafted a new will that told a story, the complete story of Margaret O'Brien Sullivan, including all the secrets I'd kept for decades, every asset they didn't know about, every business venture they'd dismissed, every time I'd saved their father's company from bankruptcy through my shadow interventions. The will would be my testimony, my vindication, and their education all at once. The physical toll of maintaining my deception was considerable. I had to carefully time my medication to appear weak during my children's visits while maintaining enough strength to handle my business affairs. Patricia and Ronald began visiting more frequently, always with papers to sign, always probing about accounts and assets. "Mother, you remember Dad's offshore accounts, don't you?" Ronald asked one afternoon, leaning forward with poorly concealed greed. "The ones in the Cayman Islands?" I let my eyes go slightly vacant. "Cayman? Is that where we went on vacation that time? Such pretty birds." His frustration was palpable, but he couldn't push too hard without revealing his hand. They still needed me alive and just competent enough to sign documents. This delicate balance gave me the time I needed. Meanwhile, my real work continued. I established the Margaret O'Brien Foundation with an initial endowment of $10 million, dedicated to supporting women entrepreneurs and elder care advocacy. I transferred properties they didn't know I owned into trusts for my loyal household staff and various charities. Most satisfyingly, I set aside substantial funds for Dr. Sarah Chen's community clinic project, ensuring her dream of providing free healthcare to low-income seniors would become reality. The investigator Marcus hired uncovered even more than I expected about my children's activities. Patricia had been slowly stealing from my household accounts for years, small amounts she thought I wouldn't notice. Ronald had forged my signature on several loan applications, using my assets as collateral for his failed ventures. The evidence was damning and would play a crucial role in what was to come. By November, 8 months after they first stole my medication, everything was in place. The new will was signed, witnessed, and irreversible. The foundation was established, the trusts were funded, and the truth was documented in devastating detail. As autumn progressed, cracks began appearing in Patricia and Ronald's united front. Their scheme required patience, but greed rarely breeds that virtue. During their visits to my home, I watched as they began to bicker over their anticipated windfall. "She's taking too long," Patricia snapped at Ronald during one visit, thinking I was napping in my chair. "Every day we wait is costing me money. Do you know how much interest I'm paying on my credit cards?" Ronald's response was equally testy. "And whose fault is that?" "I told you to be conservative with your spending until we had everything secured. But no, you had to buy that ridiculous Mercedes." Their arguments became my entertainment. each revealing more about their true character and financial desperation. What they didn't know was that I had been systematically protecting my actual assets while allowing them to see only what I wanted them to see. The accounts they monitored showed declining balances, money I was quietly donating to charities in their names, ensuring they'd receive the tax receipts as a final ironic gift. The most satisfying shift came from my granddaughter Emma. She had been working abroad after college but returned that fall. During a visit without her mother's knowledge, she confronted me directly. "Grandma," she said hesitantly, "I heard Mum and Dad talking about your pills and money, and I don't understand what's happening, but it doesn't feel right." I looked at this young woman, seeing a glimmer of the conscience her mother had lost. "Sometimes, dear one, people show you who they really are when they think no one's watching. The question is, what do you do with that knowledge?" Emma began visiting me regularly, often bringing groceries or spending afternoons reading to me. Unlike her mother, she never asked about money or tried to get me to sign anything. Her genuine care stood in stark contrast to her parents' calculated visits. "I'm thinking of going to law school," Emma confided one day. "I want to help protect people who can't protect themselves." I smiled, knowing she would soon have more resources for that noble goal than she could imagine. The house staff, whom Patricia and Ronald had always ignored or treated dismissively, became my silent allies. Maria, my housekeeper of 20 years, began documenting their visits with subtle photographs. James, the gardener, made note of times they arrived when they thought I was alone. Without being asked, they created a protective network around me. By early November, my children's desperation was palpable. They began discussing memory care facilities during their visits, leaving brochures where I would find them. "It's for your own good, Mother," Patricia would say sweetly. "Wouldn't you feel safer with medical staff nearby?" I would nod vaguely, letting them believe their plan was working, all while knowing that in just a few weeks, their world would come crashing down around them. The stage was set, the players were in position, and the final act was about to begin. By late November, the momentum toward my revelation had become unstoppable. Marcus had filed all the necessary paperwork, the foundation was operational, and several charitable organizations had already received substantial donations in my children's names. Donations large enough to generate significant media attention they couldn't explain. The local newspaper ran a feature on the mysterious benefactor who had donated $2 million to the Willow Creek Senior Center, stipulating it be named the Patricia Sullivan Wing. When Patricia saw the article, her face went through a kaleidoscope of confusion, suspicion, and rage. She confronted me that afternoon, waving the newspaper. "Mother, did you do this? $2 million without consulting me?" I let my eyes wander vaguely. "Patricia? Is that you, dear? Have you brought my pills?" Her frustration was delicious. She couldn't admit she'd been withholding my medication, couldn't reveal she'd been counting on that money for herself, and couldn't figure out how I'd managed such a large donation when she thought she was monitoring all my accounts. Ronald faced similar bewilderment when he discovered the Ronald Sullivan Entrepreneurship Fund at the local community college, endowed with $3 million for struggling business students. Dr. Chen helped orchestrate the growing chorus of confusion. She arranged for several of my secret business associates to send get-well cards to my home. Cards from CEOs and board members of companies my children had never heard me mention. Each card was like a breadcrumb leading to the truth they'd been too arrogant to see. "Who's Martha Blackstone?" Patricia demanded, reading one card. "She says she's grateful for your mentorship in building her tech company." "Oh, that sweet girl," I murmured. "I think I met her at church, or was it the grocery store?" The cards kept coming. International business leaders, successful entrepreneurs I'd quietly backed, board members from my shadow positions. My children's worldview was crumbling one greeting card at a time. The final piece of momentum came from an unexpected source. Arthur's elderly brother, Theodore, whom we hadn't seen in years, arrived for a surprise Thanksgiving visit. What Patricia and Ronald didn't know was that Theodore and I had maintained a correspondence for decades, and he was one of the few who knew about my business activities. "Margaret," he boomed in his still strong voice, "I hear your investments in Singapore are doing extraordinarily well. That pharmaceutical company you backed just went public." I shot him a warning glance, but the damage was done. Patricia and Ronald exchanged stunned looks. Singapore? Pharmaceutical companies? IPOs? The grandmother they thought they knew was evaporating before their eyes. That night, I heard them arguing in the hallway about accelerating their plans. "We need those papers signed now," Ronald hissed, "before she does something crazy with the rest of the money." If only they knew that the crazy things had already been done. The will was updated, the assets were protected, and the stage was set for the performance of a lifetime. December 15th, 2023, arrived with the kind of bitter cold that makes Vermont winters legendary. It was also the day I had chosen for my revelation, exactly 9 months after my children had first stolen my medication. Dr. Freeman had requested a follow-up appointment to discuss my concerning test results from recent blood work. What Patricia and Ronald didn't know was that I had orchestrated this meeting with his full cooperation. The scene was set in my living room rather than the hospital. I had insisted on home care throughout my supposed decline. Present were Dr. Freeman, Nurse Rodriguez, who had continued checking on me after my discharge, Dr. Chen as my healthcare advocate, a social worker named Ms. Peterson, and of course, Patricia and Ronald with their spouses. Marcus Webb sat quietly in the corner, his leather portfolio resting on his lap. "What's he doing here?" Patricia demanded, gesturing at Marcus. "This is a private medical consultation." "All will be clear shortly, Doctor," Freeman said, his expression grave. "But first, I need to discuss something disturbing about Mrs. Sullivan's medication levels over the past 9 months. As he presented his findings, inconsistent blood levels of the heart medication, patterns suggesting intermittent dosing, I watched my children squirm. They still believed they were in control, that this was merely a bump in their road to my fortune. That's when I struck. With strength that surprised everyone, I rose from my chair, my voice clear and commanding. "I can explain the medication inconsistency, Doctor. My loving children have been stealing my pills to induce confusion, hoping to have me declared incompetent so they could take control of my assets." The room erupted. Patricia jumped up, sputtering denials. Ronald's face went from red to white, but I wasn't finished. "Nurse Rodriguez," I continued calmly, "brought the hidden camera footage as I requested." She produced a tablet showing clear video of Patricia stealing pills from my bedside, of Ronald photographing my financial documents, of them discussing their plans in my hallway. The evidence was irrefutable, but the true revelation was yet to come. I reached beneath the cushion of my chair, where I had placed it that morning, and pulled out the sealed envelope that had been waiting for this moment. My hands were steady as I broke the seal and unfolded the document. "Since my children have proven themselves not just unworthy heirs, but actual threats to my life," I read, "I have restructured my entire estate. To Patricia and Ronald Sullivan, I leave the sum of $1 each, the exact value they placed on my life when they risked it for money." I continued reading, revealing everything, My hidden business empire worth over $50 million, my board positions, my international investments. The will detailed how the Margaret O'Brien Foundation would receive the bulk of my estate, how Dr. Chen's clinic would receive $10 million, how my loyal staff would each receive $1 million. And to my granddaughter Emma, who alone showed moral courage, I concluded, I leave my business portfolio and mentorship of the foundation. The silence was deafening. They had lost everything. The aftermath of that December revelation sent shockwaves through our family and community. Patricia and Ronald attempted to contest the will, hiring expensive lawyers to argue undue influence and mental incompetence. But Marcus had built an ironclad case. The hidden camera footage, medical evidence of medication theft, and documentation of their financial exploitation over the years made their position untenable. Within 3 months, both faced criminal charges for elder abuse and attempted murder. The legal proceedings revealed the full extent of their deception. Patricia had stolen over $200,000 from my accounts over 5 years. Ronald's forged signatures had put me at risk for nearly $1 million in fraudulent loans. The court cases became cautionary tales featured in legal journals and elder care publications. Patricia's house of cards collapsed spectacularly. Without my secret support and facing criminal charges, she lost her Mercedes, her home, and eventually her marriage when David discovered the extent of her deception. Ronald's latest business venture, built on my forged signatures, crumbled within weeks. They both eventually accepted plea deals, receiving probation and mandatory community service at elder care facilities. A fitting irony. Emma, my granddaughter, proved herself worthy of the trust I placed in her. At 26, she took leadership of the foundation with a grace and wisdom beyond her years. She used her inheritance not for luxury, but for impact, expanding our programs to help thousands of seniors protect themselves from financial exploitation. You taught me that true wealth lies in lifting others, she told me during one of our weekly meetings. I won't let you down. Dr. Sarah Chen's clinic opened the following spring, providing free healthcare to over 3,000 seniors in its first year. At the ribbon-cutting ceremony, she spoke about the importance of true friendship and the courage to stand up for what's right. The clinic became a model for community-based elder care, inspiring similar programs nationwide. My own health improved dramatically once I could take my medication regularly without subterfuge. Dr. Freeman jokes that revealing the truth was better medicine than any pill. The stress of maintaining my deception had taken its toll, but freedom brought renewed vitality. At 79, I felt younger than I had in years. The Margaret O'Brien Foundation grew into a powerful force for social good. We funded legislation strengthening elder abuse laws, created educational programs about financial exploitation, and provided legal resources for seniors facing family predation. Each success story reminded me that my experience, while painful, could prevent others from suffering similarly. I still live in the family home in Willow Creek, but now it truly feels like home. Emma stays in the guest wing. Maria and James continue their work as partners rather than employees. And Dr. Chen remains my dearest friend. We've created a chosen family based on respect, loyalty, and genuine affection. The lesson: never underestimate someone because of their age. Behind every grey hair might be a lifetime of wisdom, strategy, and hidden strength. And remember, those who would steal your pills today would steal your life tomorrow. Guard both with equal vigilance.